Welcome to Psychic Evolution with evidential psychic medium Jamie Clark and spiritual coach and healer Maggie Clark.
And welcome back to another episode of Psychic Evolution. I'm Jamie Clark.
And I'm Maggie Clark, and this is the podcast where you discover the psychic potential within to empower yourself and manifest your psychic and mediumship gifts.
And these abilities are so natural, they're supernatural.
And we are so honored to bring two pillars of the spiritual community in Phoenix here today onto our show. Now, first and foremost, these two women, Sandy Rogers and Sharyn Jordan, have wrote this book called Wisdom of the Silver Sisters. And we have been devouring this chapter by chapter, moment by moment, these exquisite stories of 45 different authors. And a little bit about Sharyn. Sharyn is an inspired writer and a feng shui consultant. She's also the author of 8 books and 2 collaborative books. So she has a ton of writing experience. And I am, from reading this book, a huge fan of her writing. So I could just say eloquent, beautiful, and I will definitely read a little bit of this to you guys because it is amazing. And Sandy Rogers is a huge active member of the spiritual community here in Phoenix, and she has been for decades. She's known as the Referral Queen. So she really looks at serving entrepreneurs in the holistic health, the metaphysical community, spiritual, personal development. And she has been serving these business communities since 2000, since the year 2000 with email promotions, marketing, consulting. And I had met her, oh my gosh, I think when I first started to come down to Phoenix to do some fairs and do things like that, I met her. And right away, just knew that what an amazing heart. What an amazing heart. She dedicates so much of her time to this spiritual community in Phoenix. So we are honored. And thank you, Sandy, and thank you, Sharyn, for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. This is a treat and a joy. And I've never done a podcast before, so this is fun.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, it's
Congrats.
so much fun.
You'll
I'm
see
a
it's
virgin.
easy.
Now, with yes,
Not anymore, honey.
Now, The Wisdom of the Silver Sisters is a #1 bestseller, okay? So check it out. It's got a 5-star review on Amazon, and it's an anthology spotlighting business expertise, holistic healing, leadership, spirituality, and even time travel. So it is right up our alley.
Yeah.
So this is an amazing book. Every chapter is written by a different author. Every story is unique. Every story is offering all of us an opportunity to connect to someone's wisdom, whether it's through experience or expertise. It is just a huge compilation. And there's even a few names on here that you might recognize because Vivian Chevette has been on our podcast twice already. So that has been amazing. And so without any further ado, we really just want to get into it. But before we go even further, I want our listeners to hear how amazing this book will make you feel. Because when I read this little snippet of the book, and it's in Sharyn's chapter, I fell in love with the book. I immediately, within a paragraph, wanted to eat it up. And so I just like to read a little bit, and then we'll jump back in here. Let us align ourselves in the timeless states of grace, where exquisite epiphanies dwell, based on how we have honed our talents, our adaptability, and deepened our capacity for unconditional love. We are sojourners walking through this divine life, able to make it up as we go. We are time travelers, calling forth our ancient muses, creating noble, influential narratives that elegantly reshape our tomorrows in ways of transformational worthiness, dignity, and glorious compassion. Throughout our ongoing life after life, we have worked through many cycles, phases, and ages, and yes, stages that brought us here. Indeed, no more waiting, we have arrived. Welcome, my wisdom of my silver sisters.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
And with such great insight from so many people, may I ask, what was the impetus to get you ladies to do this together and to give such a beautiful bridge of consciousness to humanity?
It actually began when I was invited to do a chapter in another book, a compilation book that was called Love Meets Life, which was just an extraordinary experience. Some of you may know Therese, and that was her vision and passion. And I shared it with Sharyn, and Sharyn said, I want to do a chapter. And so we both did a chapter in that book. And believe it or not, we did have an in-person book signing in the middle of COVID in what was it, November of 20. And everybody stayed safe, but it was just an inspiration. And Sharyn had a dream after that event that came to her about the book that we did. And she saw it, she saw the vision, and I'll let her share more about that. But she saw the vision and saw the name of the book and shared it with me after she had another vision that I'll let her share with you about.
Please.
Yes, and as it is, basically what happened is that it was so clear and it was inspired. And I saw five of my friends that I knew we should spotlight what they've done in the world, what they continue to do in the world. And as Sandy said, that title, Wisdom of the Silver Sisters. And so as I mulled over that, woke up extremely, it was all very lucid. And a week or so later, I thought, this is a big project. I know that where partnership is obviously really helpful. The two of you work in partnership, and you know the benefits of that. And what I could bring to the table, and I asked the universe, okay, show me who I should partner with. And that night, Sandy's name literally appeared on the ceiling. It was magical. And I thought, well, of course, my sister Sandy. We're born in the same year. We're both 73. And in feng shui, there's a system called 9-star chi. And every year we are constellating who we are in terms of the influences. And Sandy and I are considered, of the 9 stars, we have a star called a 7, which are joy bringers. And so that year, 2021, when I knew the book would be coming out, we were going to be in our helpful people. And so what better place than to hold a space to honor other people. And so I approached her and she said yes immediately. And we complimented each other beautifully. And what was lovely, and I told her about, that my vision and all, and we set out intention. And so we decided we would interview publishers. We had the publisher of the other book, which was quite lovely. But she said, I want to talk to this other friend of mine who's been publishing for a number of years. And her name is Becky. And she's with Spotlight Publishing. Well, there's confirmation, because in the dream, I saw spotlights on these 5 friends. And by the way, they weren't in the book. They had other books and other projects, but that's okay. We have 46 women that were. And so that's how it evolved. And we set intention. The first intention was for it to be magical. The second intention was for it to spotlight everybody. And I loved what you said, Maggie, experience or expertise. Exactly. What they brought to the table, what they wanted, their legacy, if you will, but that ongoing service of heart. And then, of course, evergreen. We didn't want this to be, as Sandy and I were together this morning planning the next project, you don't want that one-hit wonder. So how was this going to be evergreen? And it was step-by-step, huge learning curve. We learned a lot, and so there we are. And that brings us to today.
That's beautiful.
Yes,
you ladies vibe, you've had multiple past lives together, not just this one.
Thank
I feel
you.
like, you're the sisters of unification. I know you feel that connection, but it's also nice when you vibe that, that soul point of consciousness to go, no, we're supposed to be doing this together. You want to do it? Yeah, heck yeah. Feels great. And not only that, but look at how the universe is working with you ladies. Hey, right up above you on the ceiling. You're like, holy crap, I guess that's not the ceiling's the limit. It goes way beyond that.
I like
just
that.
The indicator. And I think that, like I do, is by sometimes these experiences, these stories, when we can write them, when they can share them, they can become very healing for ourselves. And sometimes people just need to be able to be comfortable and take the adventure with somebody else in their own home where they can read those words, let it speak to their soul. And a lot of people are starting to wake up to the essence of who we really are, which is the oneness. And I'm starting to see a lot of people go, I'm ready for more. I don't know what the heck it is, but I'm ready. I'm like, freaking A. That's
Beautiful.
when you start finding yourself within life and that life within you. But it's also in this way, did you ladies have categories that you wanted to share with each of the writers to give the fullness of the whole book? Or how did that possibly work for you ladies when you were bringing the
I
writers
think this
in?
is where a lot of the magic, we had so much magic, quote unquote, happen around this book. And I think we had talked about that, but we decided it needed to be free flowing. And the interesting thing is, and you've read a lot of the book, there's not a single chapter that is of the same topic, of the same. I mean,
Right. So I was
it's pretty
asking.
amazing. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, we
Kind
didn't
of
really want
nice.
to set up categories, so to speak. It was the sharing was the wisdom that you've had in your life that you want to share, maybe an experience that happened to you, personal experience, something outside of you. We wanted it to be share your wisdom, whatever that is, and whatever topic that might be about. I mean, we had one of our authors, she was so cute. One of our authors decided she thought she should pull out of the project because she didn't have anything to offer that was spiritual. She wrote her chapter on finances, and it was like, that's pretty spiritual. So, I mean, and it's been a well-received chapter. So, we have everything from finances to space travel in the book and all the topics in between.
And when you can have your own life experience and have people vibe with
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yes.
you're thinking,
Yeah.
oh, I may not be doing that well. And you're like, that's freaking perfect. We need the practicality of spirituality. Fit
Yeah.
this stuff in
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis.
What I love about the book is that there is a chapter that anybody can relate to. You might not relate to one
Mhm.
chapter, but you will find a chapter that will tug at your heartstrings and be like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
was in that same position. Or I wish I had known that then, because
Yeah.
this is like,
Mhm.
this is the wisdom that you're accumulating. And I find it so perfect that we can offer wisdom to other people. Like we leave a legacy, we leave the wisdom behind. And there's so many little treasures, like even in Judith's chapter where she goes to hug someone and she keeps bumping into him all the time. I'm like, gosh, I've done this 1,000 times. Like, am I supposed to hug this way or this way? And how am I not going to hit someone's nose? And, just hearing
Yeah.
her talk about the experience and what that brought to her and through the wisdom she learned through like that healing of opposites and just kind of the polarization of those social interactions. But the awkwardness, we walk around in this world hiding our awkwardness so often, until we are
true.
like, "Hey, it happens to everybody, and it's all good." It was beautiful.
One of the funny stories that happened when we decided to first put the word out that we were going to do the book was we initially thought that we would invite women over the age of 55, given that it's wisdom of the Silver Sisters. And the interesting thing is Vivian and Nicoletta are both women who were considerably less than 55, are the first two ladies who reached out to us and said, I really want to write a chapter in this book. And Sharon and I looked at each other and went, wait a minute. Wisdom doesn't begin at 55. Wisdom begins at birth. A 2-year-old will go in and put their hand on a hot stove, and they have the experience, they have the knowledge now not to do that, but they have the wisdom to not do that. So it just opened the door for so many wonderful women to show up with their stories.
And I think that brings up a very interesting point is with all these experiences, my thing is really, do I really have to go through putting my hand in a fire to realize it's not a good thing
That's
for
a
me?
good point.
Or, right, or can I learn from someone else? So
Right.
it sounds like you've given a lot of the readers many different avenues for realization, many different avenues for their own individualized experience, because these are different people, not all the same person. Yet each person in their own validity, their own way of communicating is adding more to the bigger picture for people to go, okay, so it's about living while you're alive, not just existing or surviving. And,
Yeah.
when they can see that you've gone through a lot of those life experiences, and for me, that's part of it to go, I'm freaking learning from these lovely people. I'm not silly. And so in learning in my own way, isn't that what experience is? The knowledge of the experience and how to work with it? Good. I'll learn from other people. It's that kind of speeding up the integration of life experience Has this shifted any of your perspectives on life as you've come together to work as a team?
I think with the teamwork, it's been basically the complementary, the way that we'd finish each other's sentences, what Sandy's strengths were, and I've said this a lot. Her superpower is spreadsheets, and and so the things that we brought to the table. What it shifted for me is the gratitude in terms of the depth of it, because truly it has been a place of not only trusting but also about the feedback. And you're exactly right, Jamie. Learning ahead of time, reading other stories, you don't necessarily have to burn your hand to learn. And so those are the things I've had so much feedback in terms of, I read this story and it's exactly what I needed. I picked up the book and went to this chapter and it was so healing for me. And so it's been a reservoir of not only wisdom but healing graces, and for people to identify with that. I have one very young friend, and I say, well, she's actually, I think, in her 40s, but age, as we talked about, it doesn't matter. And the sense,
when you're 73, 40 is young.
That's it. So
nice relative, man.
I have to watch. I identify very much with the grandmother wisdom. So, but her comment is, how did you put all of these chapters? I go chapter by chapter, and I said, and Sandy and I looked at each other and said, well, they were alphabetical, because that's where we arranged them in terms of, and to this young friend, she said she would go from chapter, and then it would literally take her to the next step. And the stories were related, but absolutely unrelated. For her, it continued to unfold what she was so hungry for. And this is literally, she keeps it on her nightstand, and it's something that's her go-to. So I think that's what has shifted me in terms of not only trusting and stepping in. Again, as I say, we had a learning curve, a huge one last year, but having the confidence to go through, and also the love in our hearts to have that spotlight all of those stories. And now, of course, what they do for people in terms of having that, as you said, in the comfort of their own home. So it's been it's been not so much a shift, but a deepening of that sense of gratitude.
And did you see a lot of the writers, the contributors, have their own healings as they got to share these life experiences?
Yeah. Because writing's healing.
Some of the stories are pretty profound.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. And what a great avenue is you gave them the opportunity to do this for themselves. They didn't have to. You gave them a beautiful project to come together. And I'm willing to bet probably each and every one of these were wanting their own way of healing.
Several of the authors have shared with us the healing that happened for them, and the fear that came up to write the chapters. There was a lot of fear. It's like, what do I write about? B, do I want to be that vulnerable? And after it was done, and when they submitted, I know Sharyn had conversation with many, and so did I. There were a lot of tears of relief, of joy, of accomplishment, of concern. How are people going to perceive me? So it's just been quite the extraordinary process, and it's still ongoing. I mean, we still have conversations. In fact, we have created community, and a lot of our sisters are in the greater Phoenix area. So we've been getting together on an occasional basis and continuing the journey, if you will. We didn't want it to just stop. We didn't want it to just end with the book launch, which we had a fabulous book launch, by the way, at the Irish Cultural Center.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's beautiful. In your energy field, you have at least 2 other projects that you're vibing with?
Yes, thank you.
So if you haven't been thinking about it, it's strongly there.
Thank you, Jamie.
We had a strategy session today for the next one. We'll drop a little hint that says the next one is going to have male energy.
Oh, very nice.
Nice.
Very cool. It's all about balance.
Gotta balance it out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think allowing the males as well to share their perspective, to be able to open up, to possibly be vulnerable. That it doesn't always have to be a strong one. It's like, hey, man, we're in a human experience at the moment. That's it. One of the many. But in this way, I'm kind of learning to function this way. And when I can have other people of like-mindedness and like soulness, then I'm starting to feel like I'm part of a family, not just a connection, but a part of it. And I feel like you're giving a lot of people to kind of find their own comfort and to find themselves within life And that's a really cool thing because they're the ones who were working to do it. You've just opened that beautiful opportunity up.
It's been a privilege. It has
We
really been
we
a privilege.
had
I bet.
many of our sisters had their male counterparts or family members or fathers who supported them through the whole thing. They really read the book cover to cover and gave us extraordinary feedback. Sharon, I think
Cool.
you can share maybe a little bit of some of Chelsea's.
Well, yes, one
Yeah,
of
if
our
you would.
writers, Chelsea Sutton's father and husband came to the book signing, and they were talking about the fact that this was the human experience. And for them, I mean, they were holding the book to their heart. And not only with, and Chelsea, her chapter is asking the right questions, and she has this gorgeous purple hair, and she's fabulous. And through that support, but also reading each story, they were brought not only to tears, but an awareness of it, answered some questions that they didn't even know they had. And it was so full circle because Chelsea's chapter was asking the right questions. And so it was a beautiful experience. And we had one man that came and he was an attorney. And he said, I have to work in that brain all day long of legalities and the litigious society. He said, when I started reading this book, it opened my heart up in such a way that softened what I have to do in the world. And so the way he was showing up had talk about a shift, Jamie and Maggie. And he was literally, there were tears, and he went
Mhm.
to every single author and thanked us each and every one. There were 30 of us at this book signing, which is remarkable since we had 46. And some of our authors are there's one in Spain and in San Francisco and in Florida and New Hampshire. And so we're spread all the way across. So that was a really powerful day. And the energy was, people would walk in the door and just, I mean, they almost gasped. It was just the love it was definitely tangible.
I think that's beautiful because more than likely you brought some of these people together to work on this, but they also might find a couple of projects because you already
Oh,
vibe with there's
several
a few of the
have.
people that'll
Yes.
do that. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, 'cause it's
And I
already
think
there. I'm
that's
like,
the
I don't
thing
know what
is
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 that.
then they have the confidence to
Yeah.
go in and launch that project that's been really wanting them to express themselves of their own book, or
Yeah,
possibly their own group. So it has been certainly a touchstone for them to springboard from.
cool.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful component because I know we have a lot of young people out listening now going, "I'd love to write a book about my spiritual experiences." And then we think, but it's already been written about, someone's already done that. And this is one of those books that proves that it doesn't matter if you've had a similar experience as someone else, your unique wisdom, your unique perspective is really the gold of the story. It's not that someone else has had this experience or not, or written about it before or not. It's the fact that every author approaches this from such a beautiful, unique perspective. And do you find that your writers really viewed this as like a spiritual practice of some kind, of an opening of some kind?
I would say 100% absolutely yes. And again, I base that on the numerous conversations that we've had with our authors. We did it prior to launch, we did several Zoom calls and brought everybody together in that way, which helped to begin lay the foundation for creating that community. But one of the things I think that they all have said is how it opened up themselves, how they opened up to the difference that they know their story is going to make, even if it only touches one person. That's the goal. If it only touches one person, it's they've made all the difference in the world. And so for many of them, that was a conversation that we had was what difference am I going to make? What difference is my story going to be? And how is that going to impact somebody's life? How's it impacting my life? As I said earlier, it's like writing the stories oftentimes was quite the challenge, quite the struggle. It's like, what do I have? What can I write about? And we had that conversation with many people before they wrote their chapters. And one of the funny stories is that when we told them it was 1,200 words, they were like, I'll never be able to write 1,200 words. And then the conversation when the chapter was turned in was, I had to cut this back by a lot.
Right. And I think when
So
people can
yeah,
share,
yeah. I mean, there was so much growth on so many ways for everybody for this. Yeah.
That's beautiful. How important do you think storytelling is for our culture as a whole?
It is essential because the symbology, the growth, the experience, the wisdom, as we talk about, so much of it can be lost in oral storytelling. Mom is telling a story about grandmother, and if it's not written down, it can get lost. And storytelling is something so ancient that it's part of our DNA. It's literally hardwired into the essence of our being. And so, with technology and with the ability to write those stories in a way that we not only with a book like this, but a book that all the books you go into a library, and of course, you just the thousands and thousands and thousands of stories. And what it is that storytelling does connect us as a community. There's cultures, the diversity of them, the inclusiveness. Those are things that are important to our own, not only our own growth, but to honor our ancestors where they came from. It's such a wide berth of it, and it's sacred storytelling. And sometimes we're downloading it, literally from the cosmic. Sometimes we're basically intuiting it. Sometimes we're having to research those stories. I mean, it covers so much of a wide opportunity. And I talked about the depth of it and the width of it. Well, what happens is as we're listening and reading and really listening and honoring those stories, we are increased, and it helps us evolve. And we continue to be in that sense where you keep talking about that awakening, and it does take us back to that, because it is through those experiences that there is those aha moments, if you will, when we read that. And Maggie, I loved what you said, is that even though you feel like, oh, it's the same old, no, it's unique. And it's that experience sometimes that will trigger in a positive way that awareness or that awakening that one person, the way that story has been framed, if you will, or experienced. So storytelling is essential. And I love that it is really surfaced in such a powerful way in our this time. And I think COVID helped people really have to dig deeper of what is my story? How am I showing up? There was a lot of positivity around that, as much as it pulled the rug out from us culturally and all the ways that a lot of people operated. In the long run, I think history will prove that was a place that we learned to connect deeper with one another and with ourselves in a really profound way.
And with that connection, I think that the amplified, like bringing everyone together and the energy vibe of all of those life experiences culminate and just vibe with your entire book. That's why things just speak to you, going, it's a book or whatever, but it speaks to me. Yeah, it does. It's speaking to your soul, and you're listening is the
Yes.
point. So I feel like more than likely you'll get more validations, along the
Oh,
way. And not only that, sometimes, even just that ability to touch something and absorb the energy and information. I feel like you might have some people make comments going, it was interesting, but as soon as I picked up the book, I was already starting to get visions and stuff. You'd be like, perfect. You're right where you
love
needed to
that.
be.
Love that.
So here's without exception, and that at least that I've experienced, when somebody has picked up this book, the first thing they do is they hold it straight to their heart. And they just go, wow, what's in this book? I mean, Sharyn and I both have had
How about
the
love?
same experience with people. It's like they pick it up, they look at the cover, and then they put it to their heart and just hold it here. And they hold it. It's not just they put it there. I mean, they literally hold it there and have the conversation that you just said.
And so what does that tell you?
So,
You're speaking
yeah.
from the heart. And they'll literally, physically,
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
but true, they'll reflect that. And you're like, they haven't even opened the book yet. They're just feeling it.
Yeah.
Right. But the love, the
Yeah.
empowerment, all of that energy that has gone on with all of these experiences can be vied with as the overall total vibration of that book. And when they can feel that and
Thank
you
you.
see a consistent pattern, it's kind of like, well, I'm not making stuff up. These are people, some I don't even know, and they're doing the same thing. So now we see there is no limit beyond anything. It's what is speaking to your soul. And more people are starting to open up their hearts again. They're starting to be open to love. But first, as like you were sharing, is if you help just one person, you've done a great job. I'm like, yes, exactly. And who are we going to help first? ourselves. Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm no longer a hypocrite. As much as we're service to others, I keep myself included. Do you see other people, or have you seen them maybe as writing their own experience that maybe triggered their spiritual or psychic gifts to come on?
I think there's an alignment because again, that word trust, and they're more open to it and they're listening to their intuition. One of our friends who tends to be a little bit linear but works in she's an organizer, and I have noticed since she wrote her story, which was just a beautiful story about family, she has trusted her intuition. When she gets a certain inclination, she's doing it instead of second guessing it or analyzing it or looking at it. She's just doing it, and I've noticed that there's a place in there where there's just more
Mhm.
freedom, and again, that word trust. So I would say yes, absolutely.
See, and I think, you could do that, but the ability to feel life again, I feel like is starting to
Mhm.
get people to be activated.
I think what it is just divine love. I know that that is what's happening. I was actually with one of our authors just an hour or two ago named Alicia, and she's just vibrant, and she has a business that regularly this conversation comes up about love and about the fact of what we're here to do, and her healing hands, and again that confidence. There's just this connection, and even in our sisterhood, it's been such a joy to watch people just flower and evolve through that. Yes.
Yeah, in their own way. That's beautiful.
But this author has gone in and she has that she was able to publish breakdowns to breakthroughs. And so it's been a beautiful thing to watch her evolve like that. Yes.
Well, and when you can see from tragedy to triumph to go, okay,
Oh,
it's
yes. I
possible
love that.
and you can do it.
Yes.
That we
Well,
just
and a
sometimes
lot of
need to
times that's
know.
the opportunity. Yes, yes. And that's what we see is leaning into that. And so we've seen people be very talk about vulnerable, but they've also really shared those intimacies and how that they overcame them, as you read in the book, so many different avenues, and how life itself presented to them, and how they even overcame it, but it became a bridge to their growth, and literally took them from sorrow to joy.
I think that there's so many stories in here, but there are so many stories that I know our listeners are gonna love. I mean, stories about prophetic dreams and angels
Yes.
and ways to approach the world from your heart. I mean, the stories are endless. They're just endless, and you could just, like, take one at a the nice thing about this book is you could take one at a time. You don't have to take the whole book from front to cover all at
Yes.
once. You can
Increments.
actually you can jump around, you can pick a chapter or pick an author that you feel like you might be attracted to, and the stories are so well crafted in such a small arena. 1,200 words is really quick.
Yes,
So
it
you have
is.
this small little arena for a playground, and then all of a sudden things open up. It's amazing that you just have these little treasures as you walk through it.
Well, and I think it goes back to the fact that we are, to my way of believing, we're all writers. I mean, we're writing our story, that what I said, we make it up as we go. There's that imagination, there's that creativity. Again, goes back to trust, but also the storytelling aspect. And when people are comfortable telling their story, then obviously they're going to be evolving that story. And so, yes, the stories that came into the book, they are, there's every increment that you can have, like you said, and you can pick it up and read one, and you can pick it up and maybe read several back to back. I've got several. Some of the feedback I've received is some of the stories are reread, and as we know, when we reread something, we're not the same person that read it the first time, and so they get something else out of it. So it is fulfilling that intention of evergreen. So we're really grateful about that, to showcase, spotlight these authors that and are absolutely writers, or writerlies, if you will. And those are the things, they're scribes.
In this connection, have you ladies had any spiritual awakenings because of what you've done with this book and with other
Mm.
tools and modalities?
I would say for me, it's a mixed bag of emotions. There's the emotion of, oh my God, look what I just did. There's the emotion of, oh my God, look what I just did. uh, it's like, am I nuts? What am I? It's like, what am I doing? I mean, the behind the scenes, as you guys know, the behind the scenes is intense. There's so much detail. And I often doubted myself in many ways of whether or not I could do this. And with Sharon's support, and I'm going to cry. For me, the spiritual awakening is recognizing who I am and what I bring to the table, what I bring to the world, because I've never acknowledged it. Even though all around me the evidence is there, even though I have friends who tell me, I have not believed it. So for me, the spiritual awakening is getting in touch with that inner part of myself. And much of that, like many of us, goes back to wounds from the childhood. And that was what that's what my chapter was written about. When, there's a quote that Oprah Winfrey made that says, "Turn your wounds into wisdom." And that was a totally appropriate quote for me to have with my chapter. But I think it's an ongoing process. I don't think there's I've arrived. I think that here I am at 73 and I'm still, my spiritual awakening started, my knowledge that there was another way of being other than traditional religion started in my 40s. So, it's like, here I am still on the path, still having the struggles at the same time, having the joys and the experiences and the successes. So it's an ongoing process
And to
for
have
me.
the guts to go down this road. It's not always easy. And you're like, oh, right.
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah.
getting an end result, getting
Yeah.
something from the sharing, from the tools and techniques, then they can build upon it. For me, I always say, I want to be able to have spiritual stuff be practical. I want to be able to have the practicality of spirituality, right? Fit this in on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. I don't always have 80 hours a day to meditate. So when we can do these dynamics, these experiences, these tools and techniques, and then get a result, I think that becomes very empowering for people to go, well, you're not just talking about it, you're living it. And so I'm seeing a lot of people have that awareness. They're taking that empowerment to go, I do have things to share. Who I am valuable. And I think that that's a beautiful aspect that sometimes reading other people's experiences or becoming aware of them can give us a lot of that information as our Solodex as an eternal being of growth, of the ability to learn. In this case, lifetime after lifetime, this is not the only planet you lived in or the only universe and all that good stuff. But when we can be right where we are and be aware of it and then emanate from that point, I think that becomes a light for other people to go, so it's not too scary to shine some light. It's actually a good thing. And yeah, I've seen a lot that when they write that, the healing that comes from it, because for myself, I've done my own thing going, oh, wow, that was freaking brilliant. And it's allowed me to help myself just by communicating whatever it was that I was doing. And so it's nice when not only do I help others, I'm helping myself in the very same dynamic. That's when it becomes multifold, multidimensional.
Yes, well said.
And see, I'm going to say, I think a key for me is recognizing that I have value, because I give value to everyone else, but I don't bring that back to myself. And that's clearly part of my whole spiritual awakening and spiritual growth, is recognizing that. And I think that's the case for a lot of people, is that self-love is the biggest, I don't want to say job, but it's the biggest accomplishment that needs to happen in my life, and I know others, is to recognize that self-love.
And when they can genuinely open their soul without any judgment, nothing like that, it becomes very empowering that they even had enough guts to say something, to initiate that healing from the depth to the surface of consciousness. I think that that's happening for a lot of us people. And giving some an avenue to share, like you did with the books, that's huge, because you've just given them a bridge of connection where they don't have to take all the responsibility. You guys are doing that beautifully behind the scenes. They're getting to heal their soul just by helping others to have that information to work with, if the other people even choose. That's why the versatility of all these life experiences is beautiful, because it does speak to other people individually. What? Some connect with this, others connect with that, and together they get the bigger picture.
Yes. 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 Beautiful.
Awesome.
And also, I think that they have the boldness of really living in their joy. And because this has been such a joyful project, that it gave that resonance of what real joy was, and experience of love, like you talked about. And so, what did people take away from it? Not only the confidence that they gained, but also that depth of love and self love, absolutely, and leaning into those experiences of, this happened, and what an opportunity it was for me to grow. And so those are the
Huge.
things that I love about it, is the growth and the evolution.
And that really comes through in the book. Like I did not read this book like I would tackle any book because it's a compilation. So I just flipped around. I was like, well, I'm going to check out the Sharon and Sandy first. I'm going to read their chapters. And, I was hooked right away. I was like, okay, this is amazing. Like everybody needs this. And then I went to the beginning and read the introduction. And when I was reading the introduction, that love and that sincerity of your mission to write this book, it comes across first and foremost with love. Like I literally was reading it going, Jamie, this is really good. Like not that it wouldn't be, but I was like, wow, this
You
is like
never
really
know.
like here I am going, okay, I'm going to eat this up. This is great. Because that love and that sincerity and the creative expression and the joy, it all comes forward in the introduction, and the forward was beautifully written as well. And so as soon as these stories begin, you're like, I'm now in a world where I can be loved no matter what I've gone through, no matter what I've experienced. Someone in this book has experienced something similar, and they're now coming from this place of love and joy and harmony and sharing the intricacies of how they get there. And it's so well done. I can't give
Oh,
you
thank
guys
you.
enough kudos.
Thank
Like
you.
you
Thank
taking
you.
the time to really
Thank you.
write that introduction as well as you did. It was one of the best book introductions I've ever read. And
Thank
so
you.
I really
Wow.
that is just such a huge emanation from this book, is that you're in it and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, this is where I belong." I belong here, wherever here is, and each story takes you to a different place of here, but there is this connecting energy. It's a belonging energy. It's really, really well done. I applaud you both for that.
Oh my goodness. Thank you
And
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
so, are you working on the
Wow.
radio show or the podcast yet? Hello, McFly. Lovingly pushing your buttons, but it's very strong for
I
you.
love it.
So it doesn't mean you have to, but kind of like this beautiful book is done. I amused myself, man. But like this beautiful book is done, would also maybe give listeners.
Well, there's at least 2 books
That's what
coming.
Jamie said.
So, we may have to incorporate doing a little more
You more than likely will.
technology.
Watch. Come on, psychic light.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you so much, both of you. That was glowing. That resonates in our hearts in such a way,
Awesome.
because it was about spotlighting those
Yeah.
beautiful people in the world that are ready to be seen, and ready to be seen in ways of ministering to other people, and also celebrating wherever they've been, because we are all in this together. I mean, we're walking side by side alongside of each other. And that's the important thing,
Yes.
that we uplift and edify one another.
And Maggie, you brought up a great point with reading the introduction. Our hope was that people would read that first, because it was written from a place of, we hope you read this first because it will allow you to really go into the stories that are here and understand where they're coming from. So
Oh,
thank you
it
for
was
acknowledging
outstanding.
that.
And normally I have a tendency to skip through things, like if it doesn't capture me.
I think we
Yeah, I
all
mean, we
do
have
when it
gnat
comes to that.
attention
Yeah.
spans right now, little gnats, but and I'm also a writer, and I have experienced so much healing from the art of writing. And every time I could get into a story, I could visually see and feel that there was a healing process, and there was a spiritual process, and there was a component of evolution in every story. And it's just really heartfelt. And I think that our listeners, when they go out and grab this book, they're gonna divulge in it. They're gonna be like, I want to read everything. I want to see what it's like. Only because
Thank you.
these little pieces of wisdom, like there's something for everybody. There's something for everybody. And if you're thinking that you're alone in your
Yeah.
dealings with starseeds, or nope, there's someone in here that's just gonna be just like you. If you think you're alone and going through a divorce, oh no, that's in here too.
Yep.
From so many different angles, we attack life and we approach life. And this book just takes you from story to story to story, going, wow, like, I don't know if anything was left out. I mean, I'm sure there's always more stories and there's always more beautiful, expressions of creativity, but it's just so well done. You guys did
Oh,
such a
thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you. Thank you. We applaud our authors because again, they were willing to become vulnerable. There was all of us were, hand holding and all of us were learning, but the honesty that came through and the inspiration and the stories that they told have such meaning. And so they're beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, no longer life by the numbers, it's life by the letters. A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Know the alphabet and then move
I
beyond
like
it,
that.
man.
I
That's the
love
point.
that. Yes, so true.
Well, let me ask you this, Sharon. You have 8 other books that are published. And I
Yes.
love the way you write. I was
Oh,
the
thank
first
you.
paragraph of your chapter, I was like, "Oh my god, this is an amazing writer."
Oh,
Like
thank
I
you.
I could
Thank
read
you.
something she wrote. So out of those 8 books, I haven't attacked any yet, but which one would you recommend? And if so, I love science fiction, I love fantasy, I love,
Mm-hmm.
of course, like the spiritual
Well,
realm, but do you have one that you would recommend so that I can kind of dig into it?
well, this is the backstory. All of those books the 3 are actually available as far as on Amazon, but the other 5 were actually written just for my family. They're all biographies of family members that predeceased us, that their contract was up, and some of them were 26 years old, some of them were 25. In my story that I wrote in our book, of course, my dad was 38. And so what happened was it was marvelous, Maggie, because over this last 3 years, these books, which again were only initially published just for family, their lives, oh, sorry to make us dizzy here with my focus, but they all became, one of them actually is goes back to the 16th century. And another one then became a really in terms of a political thriller. Every biography became, in terms of a serialization, story built on the last story. The book of Nathaniel is about my son and how there's just, I won't go into all of them. So they're all being republished this year because they're
Oh,
Oh.
written
congrats.
and published, but only privately. And now they've all become, and it's become it's actually a series, the Pearl Legend series. And there's volume 1,
Awesome.
volume 2, volume 3. The one that it starts out with is the one that starts out in the 16th century. Yeah, so I will keep you posted on that. It has been, I mean, it was almost, you hear the expression, who knew? And because I didn't know, I wrote them initially to honor their lives. My sister was murdered in 1975, and it's still a cold case for the FBI. And Suzanne had kept journals for 8 years of her life. So, and she was an angel on earth. And so I had written her story, Saint Suzanne, and again, just for family. And now the letters that have been uncovered since then, it's just every book has its own essence about it in terms of building on it and how our lives evolve. And we're only here for such a short period of time, so let's don't squander it, and that's the heartbreak that I do and or see, and we all do, is when people are outsourcing what their faith is, what their ability to love is, and they're no longer connected to it. Keep that connection. And so that's what the books do. It shows us, because again, all of these, everyone in it was here just for a short time, and yet their life is so profound, it continues to go, it's timeless. And so I'm grateful, as Sandy and I talked about, our age, we're all timeless. However, every day is precious. And so while I'm here, I feel like my job, if you will, talk about a job, is as a joy bringer. let's just bask in the glow of that radiant love and stand in the light of that. So yeah, so
That's
I'm really
awesome.
just honored to now bring those stories into mainstream, because again, they were published. Well, the 3 were published mainstream, and now they bring in these 5. So I'll let you know, because they all unfold. Again, they're a kind of a sequel to the next one, which I did not see when I wrote them over a span of now 48 years.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's great.
Fantastic. How can our listeners get to you? Do you have
Right.
websites, email? How can they order the book?
Well, they can go to our website at wisdomofthesilversisters.com. Join our mailing list, because we're going to start doing a whole lot more communication with our community, not just our
Excellent.
authors, but the community at large. So wisdomofthesilversisters.com. And for me personally, they can go to AskSandyRogers.com and join my mailing list there if they want to be included in my soon-to-be newly revived mailings
Wonderful.
of my e-announcements that I
Fantastic.
did for many
And
years.
how can they get the book?
Yeah. They can get the book online at our website at wisdomofthesilversisters.com. There's a link there that'll take them straight to Amazon. They can go to any bookstore, whether it's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, local, changing hands, any bookstore, and order it. Even Target was carrying it for a while. So anywhere
Awesome.
books are sold,
And we'll
they
put
can
a
get
link
the
in our
book.
show notes for our listeners too, so they'll be able
Thank
to find
you.
it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has just been
Absolutely.
wonderful.
That's awesome.
Right
And
now
Sharyn,
I'm
what
having
about
my
you?
website Feng Shui Simplified is being revamped, and also but I'm very active on my Home Whisperer, on my Facebook page, and with Home Whisperer at fengshuisimplified.com. Plus, I love social media, so you can reach me on Sharyn G Jordan, and I'm on there every day saying hi. So
Oh,
and I tell a
awesome.
story,
Great.
and usually the story's about love and joy. So
Beautiful.
that's a real opportunity. Yeah, anybody, I'd love to have you come on in that regard.
Awesome.
Well, we want to thank you so much for taking the
Definitely.
time and spending the time with us,
Oh,
talking
thank
about your
you.
book and the
And
inspiration.
sharing the
And
love.
this is awesome. So again, Wisdom of the Silver Sisters, you can get it on Amazon. We'll have a link in the
Thank
show
you.
notes. And you can also visit wisdomofthesilversisters.com. And we can't wait for the next one to come out. So get on their mailing lists.
Well, maybe Jamie
I would
needs
be on
to
there.
be a part of the next one. Remember, I said
Just
it's
let me
going to
know.
have a
I'm
male
on.
influence.
It's that
So,
easy. Yep.
Jamie.
There we go.
Thank you so much. This
And
has been a
Well, yeah.
blessing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys
Yes.
so much for this
And
opportunity.
you were
We
awesome.
really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
If you have been enjoying this podcast, we please ask that you go to Apple Podcasts and go ahead and rate this podcast. Leave us an awesome review. We really appreciate your reviews. They mean a lot to us. And thank you so much. If you are listening to this on something other than Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review on our website. We also have a little microphone on the bottom right-hand corner of our website. If you want to ask a question and leave us a question, it will be a voicemail recorded. We'll play back your voice on this podcast and answer your questions. If we can get to them all, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love you guys.
Love and light, and we'll see you in our psychic evolution.